In the middle of a freezing forest, the strongest extermination squad finally stopped to rest. They were drinking something warm, acting like this mission was already finished. But then one cup started shaking. The ground trembled. The forest went silent. And from the darkness, a legendary ranked serpent began crawling toward them. This was the first time a monster of this rank had ever appeared, and the moment it opened its eyes, a fierce skill crushed the entire squad. Even veteran players froze. The leader shouted for everyone to hold formation, and the buffers poured every support skill they had onto one man. But there was one insane problem. The man standing in front of this legendary monster was only level 1. His status window said he was useless. His level said he should not even be here. But Hyunseong calmly activated his abilities, stepped forward, and launched himself straight at the serpent like the monster was the one who needed to be careful. The clash exploded through the forest, and everyone finally realized this level 1 player was a walking system error. But 3 years ago, Hyunseong was just a broke worker crushed by debt. His father had mana reflux syndrome, his mother worked non-stop, and his sister even used her wedding savings just to keep the family alive. Hyunseong begged for one chance to awaken, because becoming a player was the only way to save them. And when the system finally answered, it gave him the cruelest joke possible. He became a player who could never level up, but hidden inside that there was a skill that let him trade with other dimensions, buy impossible items, and break the rules every normal hunter was trapped inside. So how did the weakest level 1 player become strong enough to fight a legendary ranked monster? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. A glinting gold helmet rests against a cold rock as easy laughter echoes through the clearing. After a grueling day of dungeon crawling, the players are finally letting their guards down, stretching out their sore muscles and sharing drinks by the fire. The archer reaches for the sky, clearly thinking the danger is behind them and it's time for some well-earned rest. Honestly, whenever a manhwa starts a scene this peacefully, you just know something is about to go horribly wrong. It's way too quiet, and these guys are far too comfortable for their own good. Shadows flicker wildly against the trees as a sudden, sharp rush cuts through the midnight air. The chatter stops instantly as a sickening crack vibrates through the earth, a sound so heavy it rattles the cups right out of the player's hands. Our protagonist freezes, his eyes widening and narrowing in the same breath as he scans the dark tree line for the source of that unnatural noise. You can see the gears turning in his head. He's the first to realize that whatever is out there, it's not a standard mob. That intense look in his eyes, that's the face of a man who realizes they're no longer the hunters, they're the prey. A veteran player's hand trembles so hard his drink sloshes over his iron gauntlets. The silence is shattered by a frantic, high-pitched report. An emugi, a massive serpent-like creature moments away from becoming a dragon, is charging their base at terminal velocity. The lead commander doesn't waste a single heartbeat, screaming for the kill squad to draw their steel and prepare for a desperate combat encounter. My heart is actually racing for them. How do you even begin to prepare for a monster that's basically a demigod covered in scales? The crowd erupts into a panicked murmur as the system window flashes a terrifying truth. This is the first legendary rank monster to ever appear in this world. Before anyone can even knock an arrow, a pair of massive, serrated jaws dripping with hunger fill the entire horizon, followed by a blue serpent that dwarfs the camp. A system message, blood red and freezing, pops up to confirm the worst. Everyone has been hit with the fear mental debuff. It's a total nightmare. I mean, how are you supposed to fight back when the system itself is forcing your soul to give up? A line of archers and warriors scramble to find their footing as the command to take battle positions echoes through the chaos. While most of the camp is paralyzed by the emugi's overwhelming aura, the elites of the kill squad are the only ones holding the line. A blue system window pings into existence, confirming that Choi Hyun-sung has perfectly resisted the fear debuff. Honestly, seeing everyone else frozen while he stands perfectly calm, that's how you know who the real monster in this fight is. Dark purple lightning crackles around Hyun-sung's hand as he grips a jagged, red-jeweled dagger. He feels the surge of mana through his veins, casually mentioning that these high-level buffs are actually pretty nice. He isn't just standing there to look cool, he's calculating, his eyes narrowing as he focuses every ounce of his new power into his feet. Time to go in, he mutters, and the way he stomps the ground, man, you can practically feel the shockwave through the screen. A lone silhouette leaps high into the midnight sky, looking like a tiny speck compared to the massive scales of the serpent below. Hyun-sung doesn't hesitate, diving straight toward the creature's head with his blade trailing a violent wake of violet energy. Before the monster can even snap its jaws, a massive explosion of purple light erupts, tearing through the atmosphere in a jagged slash. It's an absolute spectacle, and it makes you wonder how a supposedly low-level player is pulling off moves that look like they belong to a god. The high-octane battle suddenly fades, replaced by the clanging metal and gray dust of a modern-day construction site. We're introduced to the real Choi Hyun-sung, a 27-year-old laborer just trying to survive another grueling shift in the sun. He explains that only 3 years ago, he was a normal college student with a bright future ahead of him. But everything came crashing down when his father was diagnosed with an incurable illness caused by the world's new mana. It's a brutal reality check, going from a legendary warrior in a simulation to a man who's just one medical bill away from total ruin. Can he really balance these two worlds, or is the pressure about to break him? A massive surge of blue mana swallows a city skyline. 19 years ago, the dimensional gate opened and brought a terrifying new illness called mana reflux syndrome into our world. But along with the sickness, some people started awakening and gaining incredible magic powers. Talk about a double-edged sword. You either get a superpower or a death sentence. A horde of hulking green orcs and mages stand ready for war in a dark wasteland. The gate was a blessing for those with power, but a total curse for everyone else as monsters flooded the streets. In the middle of this chaos, players rose up to fight back, becoming the only line of defense against these incurable diseases and monsters. It's survival of the fittest now, and the weak are getting left behind faster than ever. A wealthy-looking guy smugly tosses a coin in the middle of a high-rise district. Thanks to this new economy, players and anyone lucky enough to be in the mana trade started amassing insane amounts of wealth. But for our guy, this new world was never a dream, it was just a straight-up nightmare. Honestly, seeing the wealth gap here is just depressing, and you can see the toll it's taking on him. A sharp blue mana crystal pulses inside a dark, menacing silhouette. The medicine needed to stop the mana sickness is so expensive it's basically highway robbery. His sister even gave up her wedding fund to work 2 jobs, while he's out here wiping sweat away at a grueling construction site just to pay the next bill. It's a brutal cycle of working yourself to bone just to keep your family from drowning. The protagonist stands in a dark, swirling aura with a hollow, desperate look in his eyes. He realizes that none of this would matter, the debt, the labor, the suffering, if he could just awaken as a player. Will his wish finally come true, or is he just chasing a ghost while his family falls apart around him? The tension is at a breaking point, and you can just feel that something is about to snap. A powerful player smashes through a massive rock wall with a single, explosive strike. Our protagonist is standing at a construction site, looking down at the street while the wind whistles past his ears. He whispers a wish to become a player, his voice barely a breath. Honestly, seeing that gap between the gods in the sky and a guy in a hard hat is just painful. The scene shifts to a cramped, dingy Gazawan building as the sky turns a dark, moody blue. The protagonist is lying flat on his back on a thin mattress, staring up at a ceiling that feels like it's closing in. He's thinking about the insane wealth players accumulate, money the average person can't even imagine. It's the ultimate get-out-of-poverty card, but the mystery of how someone actually awakens is driving him crazy. Rain begins to pour outside the narrow window of his tiny, dark room. He rolls over, clutching his pillow as he admits to himself that awakening is just a lottery he's never going to win. He remembers a version of himself that used to smile, contrasting sharply with the man curled into a ball on the bed right now. It's that heavy, suffocating feeling of realizing your dreams are probably just illusions. We get a tight close-up of his face, his eyes reflecting a mix of exhaustion and a tiny, lingering spark of hope. He thinks that if desperate longing was the only requirement, he would have been a high ranker years ago. Finally, he sits up and grabs a towel, deciding to just wash up and sleep the misery away. You can tell he's just trying to survive another 24 hours without breaking. As he turns away, a strange, electric blue light begins to flicker and spark in the air behind him. He pauses, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, and looks back with a confused, "huh," on his lips. Suddenly, a holographic screen glitches into existence, bathing his entire room in a brilliant, digital glow. The words on the screen change everything. "You've awakened." I'm getting chills. After 19 years of nothing, the system finally answered his call. But now that he's in, can a late bloomer with 0 points actually survive the first trial? A heavy, rhythmic thumping sound echoes through the silence of the room. Our protagonist is gripped by a sudden, paralyzing realization that people actually die from the shock of winning the lottery. He squeezes his eyes shut, his face dripping with sweat as he offers up a silent, desperate prayer for high stats. Honestly, after waiting 19 years for this moment, I'd be praying to every god in the manual too. A glowing blue holographic window snaps into existence, reflecting in his wide, trembling eyes. The numbers on the screen are a total disaster: Strength 5, Constitution 4, and a magic power of 1. He stares at the screen in pure horror because, in this world, base stats are supposed to start at 10 across the board. This isn't just a low roll, it's the system basically telling him he's a lost cause before he even starts. The man looks at the ceiling and lets out a frustrated, guttural scream that echoes through the cramped apartment. He's looking at his unique skill, which is labeled simply as purchase, and his head is spinning. Even the most cursed players in history usually start with a total stat count of at least 40. But for him, the math just isn't adding up, and the weight of his awakening is starting to feel more like a death sentence. He stares at his trembling hands, counting the numbers over and over again: 4, 1, 5, for a pathetic total of 18. He lets out a dry, hollow laugh as he realizes he has less than half the power of an average level 1 player. We see the looming shadows of elite players behind him, emphasizing just how massive the gap is between a regular, awakened, and this statistical anomaly. He's not just an underdog, he's starting the race with 2 broken legs. A vision of the protagonist kneeling in a cold, dark dungeon flashes by as he realizes he doesn't even have basic active or passive skills. He thinks about the lucky ones, the kings, who get recruited by top-tier guilds the moment they awaken because their skills are so broken. Usually, a player chooses to be a tank, a dealer, or a healer, but looking at his status, none of those paths are open to him. He's standing at the edge of a world governed by power, but he's been handed nothing but a purchase button. But what can a man with 0 points actually buy to survive? A close-up reveals Kim Hana's face, her eyes shimmering with the confidence of an elite. She's what the world calls a lucky one, someone carried to the top by high-level players because she was born with a rare buff skill. In a country of millions, she's the only buffer in South Korea, making her a goddess among men. Honestly, it's a brutal reality check. If you aren't born special in this world, you're basically an ant waiting to be stepped on. A group of low-level players stands in the background, looking completely disposable. The narrator reminds us that in the 19 years since players appeared, a person awakening with 0 skills is literally unheard of. Our protagonist stares at his own status window, looking more like a confused office worker than a legendary hero. It's actually painful to watch. He's a statistical anomaly of the worst kind. The protagonist's finger trembles slightly as he presses the purchase icon on the blue interface. Suddenly, the shop inventory floods his vision with rare rank gear, like elven swords and dwarven war hammers. He notices the sellers are using the oldest trick in the book, pricing items at 99 million points just to make them look slightly more affordable. Even in a magical apocalypse, the marketing gurus are still trying to scam you. The screen scrolls down to show a staggering price tag of 2 billion points for a single item. He nearly chokes when he realizes this system doesn't care about the money in his bank account, it only recognizes points earned through blood and survival. 2 billion. He has 0. It's like trying to buy a mansion with a handful of lint and a dream. The protagonist's expression shifts from shock to pure, unadulterated disbelief as he continues to scroll. The public thinks heroic rank is the absolute peak of power, but as he taps the screen again, a golden glow reveals something impossible. A legendary rank item called the Demon King's Staff sits right there at the bottom of the list. If the world finds out he has access to items that aren't even supposed to exist, he won't just be a player, he'll be a target for every guild on the planet. But how does a guy with 0 points even begin to touch something meant for a god? A harsh blue notification blocks the screen, flatly stating that he lacks the rank to buy high-tier items. He digs deeper only to find that jumping to rare rank requires a staggering 10 billion points. Honestly, that's not even a goal, it's an impossible mountain for a guy starting with a big fat 0. Can he even survive long enough to see a fraction of that number? The protagonist stares at the interface in shock, his heart thumping so hard the sound practically fills the room. He scrolls past legendary gear like the Dragon Slayer until his eyes lock onto a specific entry, an elixir. If he can't buy the god-tier weapons yet, he realizes he needs something that can fundamentally change his weak, unranked body from the inside out. A dangerous smirk spreads across his face as the gears in his head finally start turning. He realizes the system isn't just a shop for players, it's a platform for a massive, high-stakes business play. I think I get it now, he mutters, realizing that to survive this world, he has to stop thinking like a victim and start thinking like a mogul. But what kind of business involves items this broken? He flops back onto his bed, eyes glued to the floating interface as he browses through various tanking skills. He spots a stat-raising potion and his first instinct is to sell it for quick cash, but he quickly shuts that thought down. Selling his future for a quick buck is what a normal person would do, and he's officially done being average. His expression turns stone cold as he realizes he could become the ultimate cheat character by consuming these items himself. He holds up a small, glowing red gem, a concentrated burst of power that shouldn't technically exist for someone at his level. This is the moment where he stops asking for permission and starts taking the power he needs to survive. Without a second thought, he tosses the red pill into his mouth and swallows it whole. The reaction is instantaneous. His muscles surge and his veins begin popping against his skin as his body is forced to evolve in a matter of seconds. It looks agonizing, but the raw power boost is undeniable. The real question is, can his unranked body actually handle the strain of a high-tier potion, or did he just swallow a ticking time bomb? His knuckles turn white as he clenches his fists, feeling the surge of the red pill finally settling into his marrow. After nearly 2 decades of being an ordinary nobody, his body is vibrating with the raw, terrifying frequency of a real player. It's almost scary how quickly he's adapting to this sudden power, like his soul was just waiting for this. He taps the floating holographic screen with a steady hand, his eyes locked on the digital market. He knows he needs more than just a lucky break, so he starts planning his point distribution to maximize every single drop of mana. If he's going to survive the big leagues, he can't afford to waste even a single point on a mistake. He stares at the skill book in his hands, wondering where to hide such a valuable item in a world full of thieves. He leans back in his chair and stretches his arms toward the ceiling, letting out a long, weary sigh that carries the weight of his past. He's been grinding in the shadows, but the foundation he's building is finally starting to look like a fortress. His eyes remain sharp as he navigates the system, focused on building up his physical threshold before he even thinks about entering a dungeon. A sharp ping echoes through the room as a notification confirms his latest purchase of crude strength-raising medicine. It's a normal rank item, sure, but for a late bloomer like him, it's the fuel he needs to catch up to the monsters at the top. The scene shifts to the massive, gleaming skyscraper of the Player Association, a building that represents both ultimate wealth and certain death. He stands at the base of the tower, looking up at the clouds before finally stepping into the bustling lobby. You can feel the tension in the air. Everyone here is a predator, and he's walking in with a target on his back. He approaches the registration counter and calmly tells the clerk he's there to sign up because he's finally awakened. The woman freezes, her professional mask slipping as she stares at his face and hesitantly calls him, "Sir," with a look of pure, unadulterated skepticism. Man, that "sir" really stings. She clearly thinks he's way too old to be starting his journey now. Can he prove her wrong, or is he just another tragic statistic in the making? The registration clerk doesn't hold back, her professional composure cracking as she tells him that nobody his age has ever awakened before. Our protagonist stands frozen, staring at his reflection in a nearby mirror while asking her what she could possibly mean by that. The camera zooms in on his face, highlighting his mustache and the weary lines of a man who's already lived a full life. Honestly, seeing him realize he's a total statistical impossibility is gut-wrenching. You can see the gears turning in his head. He's realizing that being a late bloomer might actually be a curse. The quiet atmosphere of the office shatters as whispers erupt from the crowd, with people gossiping about the grandpa who actually thinks he can register as a player. We suddenly see the MC slumped on the floor, looking completely drained as a man in a suit rushes over to ask if the elder is even okay. His hands are splayed out against the cold floor tiles, trembling as he tries to find his balance. It's a brutal sight, and you have to wonder, is his body already giving out before the journey even begins? The public humiliation is bad, but this physical collapse feels like a dark omen. He lifts a shaking hand toward his face as a sharp, rhythmic ticking sound begins to pulse in the air. A system notification appears with a jack sound, coldly explaining that he's being charged 1 point for every single second he remains alive. Then, the words, "life expectancy," flash in his vision like a digital death sentence. My heart sank here. This is the ultimate high-stakes pressure. It's not just a currency anymore. His very existence is being metered out by a ticking clock. If he doesn't find a way to gain points immediately, he's literally going to vanish. The scene shifts to a quiet room where the MC is staring at a calculator that displays a massive 8-digit number, 31 million. He realizes with a sinking feeling that his total point balance only buys him a measly year and a half of life. He stands there in his apartment, looking at the cluttered desk covered in glasses and everyday items, feeling the suffocating weight of his mortality. He's a man on a strict, terrifying deadline. How is a guy with no skills and a failing body supposed to outrun death itself? He's officially a player now, but the game is already rigged against him. He picks up an old handheld gaming console and stares at the dark screen. After barely surviving his registration, our guy realizes he needs points fast, and his only assets are the random items in his apartment. He sits on the edge of his bed, turning the Nintendo over and wondering if the system actually accepts modern electronics. Suddenly, a blue light begins scanning the plastic casing, digitizing the device right before his eyes. It's a total shot in the dark, but hey, desperate times call for desperate measures. A digital window pops up, officially identifying the device as an 8 GB mobile gaming unit with 43 games. The system recognizes it as a common rank item and opens up a registry for him to set a selling price. He looks at the screen, stroking his beard as he realizes he's basically looking at a dimensional version of eBay. If he sets the price too low, he won't get enough points to survive. If he sets it too high, it'll just sit there forever. It's a high-stakes guessing game where the currency is literally his remaining lifespan. His eyes narrow with a dangerous spark as he decides to throw caution to the wind and types a ridiculous number into the box. He isn't playing it safe at all, entering nearly 100 million points for a piece of old tech. He lets out a nervous, sweaty laugh, trying to convince himself that an insane price might actually attract the big fish in the system. He breathes a heavy sigh of relief as the listing goes live, scanning his cluttered desk for anything else he can pawn off. This guy is gambling his final year of life on a digital marketplace, and honestly, his audacity is kind of legendary. The scene shifts away from the cramped apartment to a massive, dimly lit vault overflowing with gold and ancient artifacts. Somewhere deep within the dimensional system, a powerful player is browsing the newest listings on the market. A hand with black painted nails points toward a screen, her voice echoing with a cold, bored tone. She's seen every sword and potion imaginable, completely unimpressed by the usual trash people try to sell. But then, her finger stops on something that shouldn't exist in this world. A regal woman with massive demon wings and pointed ears sits atop a throne decorated with skulls. This is a high-ranking entity, and she's staring directly at the absurdly priced Nintendo our MC just posted. She crosses her legs, contemplating how a relic from the human world ended up in a marketplace of magic and blood. She mutters that this is how the market economy survives, through the strange and the unexpected. Our MC has no idea he just caught the eye of a literal demon queen. A sharp chime rings through a dark, endless void. A mysterious notification window pops up, alerting a high-ranking dimensional entity that a new rank item has just been registered on the market. The buyer is absolutely losing their mind, screaming that they have to buy this thing immediately. Imagine being a godlike being and still getting hyped over a limited edition drop. The scene shifts to a cramped, dingy student Gazawan where Hyun-sung is staring at his reflection in a phone screen. He touches his face in shock, realizing his wrinkles are actually vanishing in real time as his point balance goes up. It's a chilling confirmation. Points aren't just for shopping, they are his literal life expectancy. He's basically trading Earth's junk for more years of life, and honestly, that's a hell of a motivation to keep selling. A beautiful silver-haired woman stands in a serene, traditional courtyard surrounded by mountains. She reaches out, and a small, rectangular object materializes into her gloved hand with a soft glow. She calls it an oddity, treating the object with the kind of reverence you'd give a holy relic. It's honestly hilarious to see her look so intense over something we'd find at a recycling center. She brings the device closer to her face, her sharp gray eyes narrowing as she inspects the sleek finish. She concludes that because it's so different from anything in her world, it must be an incredibly valuable artifact from a lost civilization. A huge, satisfied smile breaks across her face as she holds her new treasure. She thinks she just won the lottery, but we know she's just holding a used smartphone. A heavy temple bell hangs silently in the background as the woman tries to poke at the glowing screen. The phone flickers, displaying a network offline error message, which she stares at like it's a cryptic prophecy from an ancient god. She admits she has absolutely no clue what the runes are saying, but she's clearly hooked. The crazy part is, what happens to Hyun-sung if she ever finds a charger and realizes there's no signal in her dimension? That's a massive problem for future him. The silver-haired entity gazes at the phone screen with wide, trembling eyes. She's staring at her own reflection, realizing the device functions as a flawless, portable mirror. Honestly, seeing a high-tier dimensional being lose her mind over a basic front-facing camera is peak comedy. But things get even weirder when she accidentally taps a stray icon on the screen. Suddenly, a magical rune activates, and a pair of pink cat ears and a witch hat sprout on her head in the reflection. She freezes, completely baffled by this transformation magic. You have to wonder, if she thinks a cat filter is high-level sorcery, what is she going to do when she finds the actual settings? The girl flinches as a sharp, click sound echoes through her quiet room. She's accidentally triggered the shutter, and for a second, she looks like she's expecting the device to explode or curse her. She tentatively holds the phone up toward the open air, her gloved hand trembling slightly. Another loud shutter click goes off as she captures a photo of the world outside her window. To her, this isn't just a gadget, it's a legendary artifact capable of sealing images of reality itself. It's all fun and games for Hyun-sung right now, but he has no idea who is actually on the other side of this transaction. A massive, jagged fortress looms under a terrifying, blood-red moon. This is the world Hyun-sung is selling to, a gothic nightmare that makes Earth's dungeons look like a playground. Inside the castle, a pair of sharp, black-nailed claws slam down onto a stone surface with enough force to crack it. A voice drips with pure venom, praying they never find out who the seller is. The hype is real because someone in this high-ranked dimension feels insulted by these primitive offerings. Finally, a single, piercing blue eye with a vertical slit pupil glows in the darkness. They're questioning what these objects are truly for, and that gaze. That's the look of a predator who just found a new scent. Hyun-sung wanted a windfall, but he might have just invited a dimensional monster to his front door. He's rich, sure, but can he survive the attention he just bought? A sleek, handheld gaming console sits on a dark wooden table, its screen casting a soft, rhythmic blue glow into the shadows. The silver-haired buyer leans in close, her brow furrowed as she desperately searches for even a flicker of mana within the device. She's completely baffled because there is absolutely zero magic present, yet this artifact is clearly functioning right before her eyes. It's honestly hilarious watching a high-ranking dimensional entity get humbled by a piece of plastic and some circuit boards. The camera pans up to a massive crystal chandelier as the sharp, frantic click-clack of buttons begins to echo through the silent hall. A thumb presses down with maximum intensity, hoping for a clutch win, but the screen only rewards the effort with a cold, blood-red game over. You can practically feel the salt radiating off her through the screen. Even a literal goddess isn't immune to the soul-crushing frustration of a difficult boss fight. The chandelier rattles violently against the ceiling as the digital castle on the tiny screen is consumed by a pixelated explosion. The buyer lets out a frustrated, guttural scream, yelling about how she died again in what she thinks is a high-level training trial. Hyun-sung didn't just sell her a toy, he sold her a full-blown addiction that is going to keep his pockets lined for a long time. It's that specific kind of gamer rage that transcends dimensions, and honestly, I'm here for it. We jump back to a quiet street on Earth where Hyun-sung is standing under a dim lamp next to a random parked car. He tries to be a bit too clever and attempts to register the vehicle to the marketplace, but a red system window shuts him down instantly. The system is predatory, but it's not stupid. It won't let him sell things he doesn't actually own. He's lucky he didn't get a life drain penalty for trying to become a multidimensional car thief. Hyun-sung continues his walk through the dark neighborhood, his mind already spinning with new ways to exploit the market's ignorance. He suddenly stops near a pile of trash, his eyes locking onto a discarded, broken electric fan sitting on the curb. A slow, mischievous grin spreads across his face as he reaches down for the junk. He's realized the ultimate cheat code. In the eyes of a god, Earth's garbage is a legendary high-tech treasure. But what happens when these buyers realize they're being played? Hyun-sung stares intently at the rusted, broken fan in his hands like it's a holy relic. He registers the piece of junk as a common item on the registry, his mind racing with a single question: who actually sets the value here? Is it the system's cold logic, or is the market truly dictated by the whims of these mysterious buyers? It's a massive gamble, but when your life is literally on the line, you don't play safe. A blue holographic window warns him about the harsh reality of the trade, a 10-item listing limit and a staggering 20% transaction fee. Hyun-sung doesn't flinch, setting an outrageous price of nearly 1 billion points just to test the waters. He mutters that it's a pity he can't list more, but he officially declares his business open anyway. It's hilarious and terrifying at the same time. He's trying to sell Earth's garbage for the price of a kingdom. The scene shifts to a quiet building exterior where Hyun-sung is clearly trying to keep a low profile. Inside, he looks absolutely stressed, his face tight as he mutters a frustrated, "damn it," under his breath. The pressure is clearly getting to him. He's effectively a high-stakes con artist now, and the wait for a bite on his listings is agonizing. While trying to ease his tension with some floor stretches, a sharp, digital chime pierces the silence of the room. Hyun-sung's heart nearly stops when a red-tinted alert window appears. A formal complaint has been filed by a buyer named Whiteflower. My stomach dropped for him here. One bad review in this system doesn't just mean a lower star rating. It could mean the end of his career, or worse, his life. Hyun-sung's eyes go wide as he realizes this marketplace actually has a functional justice system for disgruntled gods. He panics, stumbling over his words as he realizes he needs to lower the prices immediately before the system forces his business to close. He thinks he's been caught red-handed. He's scrambling, terrified that his little cheat code just blew up in his face. But then, a series of rapid-fire dings explode in the air, catching him completely off guard. A notification flashes across his vision: your item has been sold, immediately followed by the unbelievable, all registered items have been sold. Hyun-sung just sits there on his mat, paralyzed in shock. He wasn't reported for a scam, the buyers were fighting over his trash like it was legendary loot. He's just hit the jackpot, but can he handle the attention this brings? Hyun-sung lets out a shaky laugh, wiping the sweat from his forehead as he realizes he actually pulled it off. He's genuinely relieved, thinking the hardest part of being a dimensional merchant was just finding a buyer. But his celebration is cut short by a sharp, digital chime that makes his stomach drop. A bright red notification pops up: a buyer named Whiteflower has officially filed a complaint. And before he can even process that, the chimes start overlapping, ding, 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 filling the room with the sound of his reputation crumbling. Honestly, I'd be sweating bullets too if my first customer started calling me a scammer this fast. A massive, oppressive system window blocks his view, detailing the absolute disaster of his sales record. Out of 20 items, 14 have received formal complaints, meaning 70% of his inventory is now flagged as faulty. The system doesn't play around. It slaps him with an immediate 3-day business suspension and a 1-week ultimatum to settle the disputes. One specific complaint from a buyer of a smartphone explains the problem: the marvelous artifact stopped working after only 6 hours. Well, yeah, it's a phone, it needs to be charged, but these buyers clearly don't know what a battery is. Hyun-sung stares at the screen in horror as the angry messages keep scrolling by. Even the solar-powered waterproof watch and the cigarettes have people demanding better products. It gets even weirder when he sees an ultimatum regarding the soju he sold, with the buyer threatening to take this all the way if he keeps ignoring them. It's a total nightmare scenario for a guy who was just trying to survive. Imagine selling what you thought was trash, only to have interdimensional beings threaten your life because they don't know how to use a lighter. Panic finally sets in as Hyunsung screams at the air, begging the system to just give him a second to actually read the messages. He realizes this isn't some glitch or a joke, this is his reality now, and it's terrifyingly high stakes. He slumps back in his chair, the weight of the 1-week deadline pressing down on him. If he doesn't fix these complaints, a 3-month suspension is coming, and in his world, being unable to trade for 3 months is basically a death sentence. He has to find a way to make these artifacts work for people who have no concept of technology. He starts frantically brainstorming, realizing he can sell a mobile magic stone charger, which is really just a cheap power bank, to fix the smartphone issue. But as he looks at the list of disgruntled buyers, a chilling realization hits him. These people aren't humans from Earth, they're likely entities from primitive or magical dimensions who see our everyday junk as high-tier tech. He's literally the only person with the purchase skill capable of bridging this gap. But if these buyers are as powerful as the system suggests, what happens when they realize their godly artifacts are just mass-produced plastic? He's playing a dangerous game, and the next move might be his last. Hyunsung looks down at the tangled wires of a power strip beneath his desk. He realizes that for buyers from magical or primitive realms, high technological value is the ultimate bait. He checks a local second-hand app and sees that prices for used electronics have absolutely plummeted. This is the ultimate opening. If he can buy these artifacts for pennies on the dollar here, the profit margin on the dimensional market will be astronomical. He starts frantically digging through his pockets and the clutter of his small room. He's so desperate for any kind of capital that he even considers selling a skill book. Honestly, thinking about selling the very thing that makes you a player is a terrifying sign. It shows just how much the system has him backed into a corner. A sharp light of realization flashes in Hyunsung's eye as he makes a connection. He realizes his player registry was affected by his identification, giving him a specific window into how these trades work. He immediately sits at his computer, his fingers flying across the keys to list his items before the system's predatory time limits can screw him over. The exterior of the apartment building sits silent under the cooling night sky. Suddenly, a sharp ding echoes from his smartphone on the desk. In his world, that single notification sound is the difference between starving and surviving. You can almost feel his heart skip a beat. He whips his arm through the sleeve of his heavy work jacket with a sudden burst of energy. "All right," he exclaims, a determined, slightly exhausted smile finally breaking across his face. He's finally got a lead, but the hustle doesn't stop just because he made a potential sale. The scene shifts to the dusty, grueling environment of a construction site the following morning. Hyunsung lets out a strained hup as he heaves a massive, heavy bag of cement onto his shoulder. Seeing him go from a high-stakes dimensional merchant at night to a manual laborer by day is just brutal. The guy is literally working himself to the bone. But as he trudges forward with that load, you can see it in his eyes. He isn't just carrying cement, he's carrying the weight of his only chance to reach the top. But with the system constantly hiking up entrance fees, will this double life even be enough to keep him afloat? Hyunsung hauls a massive stack of cement bags like they weigh absolutely nothing. His coworker looks on in total disbelief, asking where on earth he worked before to develop that kind of insane power. It's wild. Hyunsung is basically using the most grueling manual labor in the city as a cool-down exercise. But even with that strength, you can see the exhaustion hiding just behind his eyes. Fast forward 3 days later, and the sun is finally setting on Hyunsung's forced marketplace hiatus. He's back in his room, eyes glued to the monitor as the business suspension timer ticks down its final seconds. He needs this shop open to survive, and that small smirk tells you he's ready to start raking in the points again. Finally, the system confirms he's back in business. A sharp ding echoes through the room, but the look on Hyunsung's face says this isn't the sold notification he was hoping for. A buyer named Gaspit has just slapped him with a formal complaint, and the system warning is already threatening to tank his seller rating. You can feel the tension in the room instantly. One bad move and he's out of the game for good. This is a complete disaster. The screen explodes with blue warning text, revealing a total nightmare scenario. 20 out of 20 items sold are being reported as defective. Every single thing he listed is being flagged, and he's got a tiny 4-day window to fix it or face a massive 3-month ban. Look at the sweat on his face. He isn't just losing points, he's losing his only lifeline. He's completely panicked, and honestly, I would be too. Hyunsung clicks on the specific message for the Nintendo console and finds a letter written in pure, unadulterated venom. This buyer isn't just complaining about a glitchy screen, they're calling his tech defective crap and promising to hunt him down across dimensions just to kill him. This just shifted from a business mistake to a literal death warrant. Now he has to wonder, Who exactly did he sell that old console to, and are they already on their way to Earth? Hyunsung stares at the screen with a look of pure exhaustion while scratching his head. The system is literally counting down seconds for him to list a new item, and before he can even process the pressure, normal level complaint notification pings about a disposable lighter. This isn't just a refund request. The buyer is so livid they're threatening to open a dimensional gate just to hunt him down and kill him. Hyunsung can only groan in disbelief. Why is every customer in the multiverse a total psychopath? He slumps back in his chair, looking like he's about to scream into the void. The system's fine print is brutal. If he doesn't resolve these complaints within 4 days, he'll be suspended for 3 months. For a guy whose life clock is tied to his point balance, a 3-month ban is basically a death sentence. He grinds his teeth, a look of cold, desperate resolve taking over his face. He's backed into a corner, and he knows he can't let this end here. Grueling environment of a construction site where Hyunsung is hauling heavy supplies. He's back to the manual labor grind, pushing his body to the limit just to earn the capital he needs for his dimensional merchandise. 3 days of sweat and bone-deep fatigue pass by in a flash of hard work. Finally, he's holding the envelopes, his pay, staring at them like they're the most precious things in the world. This is his fuel for the next gamble. Back in his cramped room, Hyunsung hunches over his desk, staring intensely at a box of supplies. He's holding a pack of double batteries, his mind racing as he questions if these mundane Earth items will actually fix the defective tech he sold. He's genuinely worried about the battery lifespan of these old models once they hit another dimension. It's a massive what if, but when your life is on the line, even a pack of AA batteries feels like a legendary artifact. Suddenly, a bright holographic window pops up. Your business suspension has ended. Hyunsung lets out a sharp, nice, his eyes lighting up as the system finally gives him the green light to trade again. He leans in close to the monitor, his gaze sharp and focused as the notification pings start chiming one after another. The market is open, the stakes are higher than ever, and he's about to find out if his fixes will save him or get him killed. Hyunsung sits frozen in front of his monitor, his eyes reflecting a flickering blue light. He holds his breath as the system processes the trade, finally revealing a staggering balance of over 2 billion points. 2 billion, just like that. This isn't just a payday, it's a complete life changer that puts him miles ahead of any average player. A triumphant, sharp grin spreads across Hyunsung's face as he realizes his theory was 100% correct. He's already thinking about his next move, muttering about how gaming consoles and old smartphones are going to be his high-tech bread and butter. It's actually hilarious. He's basically running an interdimensional pawn shop with items we'd find in a dumpster. Hyunsung stands up and stretches, looking back at his monitor with the gaze of a man who just found the cheat code to life. He whispers, "First off," as he prepares to transition from a desperate seller to a registered player. You can feel the shift in his aura, the desperation is gone, replaced by a cold, calculating confidence. The screen fades to white, showing the title, Player Registration, as the story shifts to the next major hurdle. We're introduced to the Player Academy, a brutal training ground where they keep reteaching you until you're deemed safe enough to enter a dungeon. It's a harsh reality check. Awakening your powers is only the first step of a very long, very dangerous walk. We see groups of trainees swinging wooden swords and sweating under the sun while the system reminds us that being an awakened doesn't automatically make you a hunter. Suddenly, we see Hyunsung standing among a group of people as an official announces that he has officially passed the exam. Everyone's clapping, but Hyunsung looks like he's already mentally moved on to the next level. The mood sours as a few students start bickering, centered around one guy who's acting like a total jerk because he rolled a rare rank skill. The crowd is calling him out for looking down on everyone else, but Hyunsung just watches from the sidelines with a tired sigh. He mutters, "It's already like this," realizing that even in a world of monsters, the most annoying thing is still human ego. But if this rare rank guy thinks he's the top dog, he has no idea what kind of monster Hyunsung is becoming. A group of fellow players stands around, looking surprisingly friendly as the sun begins to set. They actually approach Hyunsung and ask him to come out and celebrate their awakening with them, probably thinking he's just another talented rookie looking for a squad. But Hyunsung just gives them a tired, polite smile and declines, saying he's got personal stuff to handle at home. Honestly, I respect the hustle. He knows he's literally living on borrowed time while these guys are just looking for a party. Hyunsung walks away into the city, his backpack heavy and his mind already on the next move. Behind him, the elite group just shrugs it off, with one guy saying it's a shame since he seems skilled, but they shouldn't care because they'll probably never meet a nobody like him again. If only they knew, while they're out drinking, this nobody is about to break the entire dimensional economy. A massive, modern association building towers over the city skyline under a clear blue sky. Inside, Hyunsung finally stares down at a small, rectangular plastic card, his official player ID. He's got this look of pure, quiet relief on his face as he mutters, "I finally did it." This is the moment everything becomes official. He's no longer just a laborer with a weird skill, he's a registered hunter with the right to enter the gate. A blue holographic market window floats in front of him, displaying a rare rank skill book ready for sale. He realizes that with his official license, he can finally list these high-value artifacts to pay off his father's mounting medical bills. You can really feel the weight of his responsibility here. It's not just about getting stronger for himself, it's a desperate race to save his family. A hand trembles slightly while sliding a credit card across a cold metal counter. The rental shop clerk doesn't even look him in the eye, just coldly warns him that any delay in returning the gear will result in massive additional charges. Hyun-sung can only offer a nervous air, okay, realizing that in this world, even the heroes are getting squeezed by corporate greed. It's a total money pit. A basic, dull-looking iron sword stands ready for its first real battle. Hyun-sung is absolutely floored to find out that just renting some low-rank, basic gear costs over 700,000 won, plus another 200,000 per hour just for the dungeon entry fee. He stands there, fully geared up but staring at his dwindling bank account, knowing he's basically gambling his entire life on this one raid. If he doesn't find a massive score in there immediately, he's going to be broke, or dead, before the sun goes down. A bustling town square is filled with the desperate shouts of hunters recruiting for their next raid. Groups are frantically calling out for healers, promising guaranteed safety and an immediate start to anyone willing to join their ranks. It's the classic starting zone vibe, where everyone is looking for a carry or a shield to hide behind. Honestly, seeing these guys beg for a healer really puts into perspective how terrifying these dungeons are for the average person. A weathered wooden sign points the way to the Horned Rabbit dungeon, specifically recommending levels 1 through 5. Choi Hyun-sung stares at it, acknowledging that even if the risk of dying is supposedly low, a monster is still a monster that wants you dead. He checks his status window and realizes something huge. With his current stats, he could easily join any elite party he wanted. But he chooses to stay solo, planning to pretend he just stumbled upon the skill expert ability he secretly purchased. He's playing the long game here, and keeping his growth a secret is his only real insurance policy. Hyun-sung approaches the massive iron-barred gate of the dungeon checkpoint where an official in a suit sits behind a desk. The man looks up, skeptical, and asks if Hyun-sung is really planning to head inside without any party members at all. Hyun-sung doesn't even hesitate, giving a short, firm yes as he walks past. You can practically feel the judgment radiating off the staff. They've seen 1,000 overconfident rookies walk through those doors and never come back. The official watches Hyun-sung's back, convinced he's just another reckless kid who thinks life is a video game. In this world, reality doesn't have a respawn button, and even high-level players rarely hunt solo because of the sheer unpredictability of the monsters. The guard's expression is cold, thinking that someone like Hyun-sung needs to be on the literal verge of death before he realizes he's in way over his head. It's a grim outlook, but he's not wrong. Most solo players end up as a cautionary tale. Hyun-sung steps into the shimmering blue light of the dungeon entrance, his face breaking into a nervous sweat as the portal consumes him. He takes a deep breath, clutching his weapon as he prepares to face the unknown alone. This is the point of no return. The solo grind has officially begun, and if he fails here, there's no one coming to save him. Can he actually handle the pressure of the Horned Rabbit dungeon, or is he about to become another statistic? A flickering torch casts long, dancing shadows against the cold stone as a heavy thud echoes through the silence. Hyun-sung takes his first official step onto the dungeon floor, the weight of the atmosphere instantly pressing down on his shoulders. This is the real world now, no instructors, no safety nets. He looks tiny standing in that massive, vaulted corridor, a lone silhouette being swallowed by the darkness. Honestly, the silence in these places is always the scariest part. Hyun-sung grits his teeth, his eyes narrowing as he catches the sound of a struggle further down the hall. He rounds a jagged corner and freezes, spotting a massive horned rabbit looming over a group of hunters. It's not a cute woodland creature, it's a hulking beast with blood-red horns that look like they could punch through a car door. Hyun-sung's heart hammers against his ribs as he watches the standoff. You can see the gears turning in his head. He's terrified, but he's not running. The monster bearing its jagged teeth sends a shiver down his spine, but Hyun-sung forces himself to stay still. He whispers to himself to just observe the patterns before making a move. Suddenly, a hunter's scream shatters his focus as the rabbit's eyes snap into a bright, murderous red glow. It's been taunted, and now it's entering a total berserker frenzy. This thing isn't just fast, it's a living wrecking ball. A massive, quang impact shakes the very walls of the dungeon, sending a cloud of dust and debris into the air. The vanguard knight at the front looks completely overwhelmed, his face pale as he realizes the beast's power is way beyond what they expected. Another agonizing RRGH rips through the chamber, leaving Hyun-sung watching from the shadows with a stunned, huh, on his lips. If a full party is getting thrashed this easily, how is a solo player like him supposed to survive 5 minutes in here? The difficulty spike is insane, and he's next. A knight in a heavy steel helmet bellows, "Everyone, attack," his face red with the sheer strain of the command. The entire party lunges forward, their weapons clashing against a massive, red-horned rabbit monster that looks more like a nightmare than a forest creature. Even with a healer in the back frantically pumping out green restorative magic, the frontline warriors are sweating bullets and gasping for air. It's a chaotic mess, and honestly, seeing a full squad struggle this hard against a single mob is a massive reality check. The screen flashes with a desperate, "Are you alright?" as the narrator notes how nearly impossible it is for these regular hunters to pull off a perfect kill. One warrior huddles behind a battered wooden shield, his shoulders slumped in exhaustion while the monster lets out a piercing, blood-curdling screech. This isn't some heroic dance, it's a desperate, ugly scramble for survival. You can practically feel the vibration of that scream, and it makes you wonder, if the pros are this scared, what hope is there for a rookie? Trembling hands white-knuckle a weapon handle as the party's morale starts to flicker. Hyun-sung stands in the shadows, his chestnut hair messy and his expression shifting from shock to a strange sort of calculation. The dark atmosphere of the dungeon is thick with the sound of wah echoing off the damp walls. It's a heavy moment because Hyun-sung is seeing the standard way to hunt, and you can tell he's realizing just how inefficient it actually is. A massive, white furry paw swipes through the air, nearly flattening a hunter who barely manages to roll out of the way in time. The party finally rallies, surrounding the beast and pinning it down with their shields before delivering the final, messy blow. The giant horned rabbit finally falls still, its red eyes fading as it hits the floor. But instead of being impressed, Hyun-sung just stares at the corpse, thinking to himself, this takes quite a while. That's the hook, guys, he isn't scared anymore, he's bored. He's starting to realize that while they rely on numbers, he might have a much faster, deadlier secret to climbing this tower. But can he actually pull off a solo hunt without getting crushed? We're about to find out. Safety officers stand guard in the dim dungeon light, looking more like statues than protectors. Hyun-sung watches them, noting that most parties take nearly 8 minutes just to clear a single encounter. He starts to wonder if these officers even care about the hunters, or if they're just waiting for someone to get slaughtered so they can fill out the paperwork. Talk about a cold-blooded way to make a living. Hyun-sung's blue status window flickers as he checks his remaining power one last time. He doesn't hesitate, whispering the command for stealth, as his eye ignites with a sharp, ghostly blue light that cuts through the dark. He's betting everything on the fact that his stats are finally high enough to pull this off solo. It's a massive gamble, but for a guy with his debts, playing it safe was never an option. Deep in another section of the dungeon, a group of high-ranking hunters gathers under the flickering torches. A man congratulates his teammates on a job well done, but the atmosphere is surprisingly heavy. Even with their top-tier gear and organized formation, they look like they've been dragged through hell and back just to stay relevant. We're introduced to Kim Jisoo, the Seowu Guild's healer, and her intense, purple-haired leader. Jisoo tries to keep the mood light by thanking the team for their hard work, but the Hyuni barely acknowledges it as they start to move out. You can just feel the irritation radiating off her, she's clearly not here for the team-building exercises. The leader's frustration finally boils over as she snaps at her subordinates. They've been stuck in this damp hole for days, and the specific target they need is nowhere to be found. Her team promises they'll do better next time, but promises don't help with class advancements or guild rankings. Suddenly, the screen is filled with the menacing face of the Horned Rabbit Chief. This isn't your average mob. It's a rare boss with glowing red eyes and a horn that looks sharp enough to pierce plate armor. This is the beast the pros are desperate to find, and exactly what Hyun-sung is about to run into while he's deep in the shadows. This is about to get very messy, very fast. Yuni's face twists in pure frustration as she literally grits her teeth. She's been camping this rare boss spawn for ages, but the Horned Rabbit Chief is a total no-show, and she's losing her patience. Jisoo, let's go, she snaps, finally ready to cut her losses and move on. Honestly, seeing a pro this tilted tells you everything you need to know. The RNG in this dungeon is being absolute trash today. As we see small, unsuspecting rabbits grazing in the clearing. The high-level party is just about to head out when something catches the blonde subordinate's eye. Jisoo pauses, squinting through the mist at a figure moving in the distance. You can feel the shift in the air. They weren't expecting to see another soul out here. Hyun-sung emerges from the fog, walking with a heavy, weary gait that screams survival. Jisoo points him out to her leader, genuinely confused if this guy somehow lost his entire party to the monsters. The leader's eyes narrow, realization hitting her that he's actually soloing. Seriously, walking into a high-rank spawn zone without a frontline tank is basically a death wish, or a very desperate gamble. The camera pans down to Hyun-sung's boots as he activates a low-level stealth skill. The pros are baffled, wondering why an assassin type would choose this specific, dangerous hunting ground. But then, the leader notices the scuffs on his armor and realizes it's cheap, rented equipment. She straight up calls him a crazy bastard. It's like watching someone show up to a professional drag race in a beat-up minivan. Hyun-sung slowly draws his blade, his face cast in shadow as he locks onto his target. The elite party stays hidden in the brush, convinced they're about to watch a rash idiot get flattened in seconds. The leader even scoffs to herself, noting that you need to be at least level 35 to even think about a one-shot kill here. And from where she's standing, Hyun-sung looks like a total amateur. The two women stand frozen, their expressions shifting from mockery to pure, unadulterated shock. We get a tight close-up on Hyun-sung's steady eyes, his heart thumping like a war drum in the silence of the woods. He isn't shaking, and he isn't hesitating. He's about to pull the trigger on a move that shouldn't be possible. The real question is, can his body actually handle the impact? Hyun-sung closes his eyes for a brief second, his face smeared with the grime of battle. He's telling himself there's no other way. He has to get used to this life-or-death rhythm if he wants to survive. When he opens them, the ground is littered with the corpses of horned rabbits. Despite the mountain of bodies, he's frustrated because not a single item has dropped. Honestly, imagine working this hard and the universe gives you absolutely nothing back. It's a total bummer, but he can't afford to stop. We see a sharp close-up of Hyun-sung's focused eyes as the system alerts for stealth and sudden ambush flicker in the air. He's chaining skills together, moving like a ghost through the shadows to catch his prey off guard. He leans heavily on his sword afterward, his chest heaving as he catches his breath over another kill. He's pushing his stamina to the breaking point, and you can see the of a man who's calculating every single drop of sweat. He's playing a dangerous game with his own exhaustion. The elite party watches from a distance, their shadows looming over the clearing. The blonde girl whispers, "Newbie," to her leader, her voice trembling with a mix of confusion and awe. A system infographic pops up explaining the law of 20 levels, a brutal mechanic where hunting anything 20 levels below you results in 0 experience and 0 items. The screen shows a cute little monster with a halo, emphasizing that the game won't reward you for bullying the weak. This is why most hunters stay in their lane, but Hyun-sung is doing something they can't quite wrap their heads around. The party leader's eyes narrow as she watches Hyun-sung grip his sword with blood-stained gloves. She calls him a bastard under her breath, realizing that since he's actually getting loot, he must be a total beginner taking on monsters way above his pay grade. The blonde member is fascinated, asking who this guy could possibly be. Instead of moving on to their own hunt, the leader decides they need to watch him a little longer. The tension is spiking because now he's not just fighting monsters, he's being hunted by the curiosity of the elite. What happens if they decide he's too much of a wild card to leave alone? The party leader narrows her eyes, looking completely unbothered by the passage of time. She decides to stick around and keep watching Hyun-sung because she simply doesn't have anything better to do at home. It's a chilling decision. She's basically treating his life and death struggle like a late-night show for her own entertainment. Suddenly, the camera cuts to Hyun-sung lunging forward in a sudden ambush, his blade finding its mark with lethal precision. A glowing blue crystal drops to the stone floor, and he lets out a breathless, "Nice," as he collects it. It's a small win, but in a place this suffocating, these tiny victories are the only thing keeping him from falling apart. A tight close-up shows Hyun-sung's eyes are bloodshot and swimming in a layer of cold sweat. He's hitting a mental wall, desperately wondering why leveling up is becoming a literal torture session compared to what he's heard. He pulls up his status window, and the blue light reveals a brutal reality, level 1. Despite the mountain of monster bodies piling up behind him, his rank hasn't moved an inch, and there isn't even a traditional experience bar to track his progress. He grips his sword handle until his gloves creak under the pressure of his fist. Honestly, I can't even imagine the soul-crushing toll of giving 100% of your soul to a fight and seeing absolutely zero results on the screen. Hyun-sung stands motionless in the darkness, his silhouette swallowed by the flickering blue glow of his status screen. He knows the standard. It should only take a day or two for a rookie to level up, so he knows for a fact that something is fundamentally broken. Behind the jagged rocks, the blonde girl actually shivers, whispering to her leader that the very atmosphere around Hyun-sung is shifting into something heavy. Even the seasoned pros are starting to get the creeps just by observing his movements now. When the elite party starts getting visibly nervous just by looking at you, it's a clear sign you're entering territory that no normal human should be in. Hyun-sung finally slumps against the dungeon wall, looking like a man who has reached his absolute limit. He's calculating his life in points, remembering the 100 million he barely scratched together selling electronics and realizing how much more blood he needs to spill to stay afloat. He scratches his head and tries to force a jagged laugh, muttering to himself that he needs to stay optimistic. But just look at him, sitting there in the blood and dirt, laughing to an empty room while the elite watch him like a specimen. Is he actually staying positive, or is he finally starting to snap under the weight of this impossible debt? Either way, he isn't stopping, and that's the most terrifying part. Hyun-sung's eye is blood-spattered and heavy with a weariness that looks almost painful. He heaves his sword onto his shoulder with a sharp, "Alright," forcing himself back into a fighting stance. He's pushing his body well past the breaking point. Honestly, seeing that level of desperation, it's actually kind of terrifying. A massive white arc of light follows his blade as he cleaves through a pair of jumping rabbits. The monsters lunge at him from every direction, their "K-I-E-E-K" screams echoing through the dark room. He's a whirlwind of steel and blood in a never-ending cycle of violence. It's a brutal way to earn a living, but he doesn't have a choice. Hyun-sung pauses mid-step as a bright system chime rings out, casting a blue glow over his confused face. A notification pops up, labeling his progress as an unbelievable achievement for slaughtering 300 rabbits solo. He's earned the title of Horned Rabbit Hunter, purely by grinding. I didn't even think he was counting, but the system was definitely watching. The status window flickers to life, showing his level 1 stats receiving a massive boost from the new title. His constitution stat increases, and the window notes he can now grow as a rare rank hunter. This is the massive break he's been killing himself for. But can one title really make up for all the years he's lost? Hyun-sung looks at the reward with a tilted head, thinking this must be a common title everyone gets. Then the truth hits him. Normal hunters level up and leave this area way before they ever reach 300 kills. He's done something so tedious and soul-crushing that no one else has ever bothered to try. He's finally got his edge, but now he has to survive long enough to use it. Is he ready for the attention this is about to bring? The purple-haired party leader watches from the shadows, a predatory smirk tugging at her lips. She whispers to her blonde companion that they've finally caught a big fish after hours of waiting in this low-rank hole. Honestly, the way she's looking at him is chilling. It's the look of a hunter who just found a winning lottery ticket. We see a montage of Hyun-sung's movements, his blade flickering as he takes down multiple horned rabbits with zero wasted effort. The leader realizes that if he'd done this once, it might be luck, but his consistency proves he's the real deal. Watching him work alone like this, it's clear he's playing a completely different game than the rookies around him. The leader clenches her fist, her mind made up. She decides right then and there that she has to bring him into her circle. She isn't just impressed, she's determined to claim that efficiency for her own team. You can almost feel the weight of that decision. Hyun-sung's quiet life is officially over. Hyun-sung sheaths his sword, his back to the darkness as he contemplates pushing even deeper into the dungeon's dangerous zones. But the silence is shattered when a voice calls out, "Excuse me," making him jump nearly out of his skin. The terrifying part is that he's been on high alert this whole time, yet he never felt a single soul behind him. The two women step into the light, their high-tier armor gleaming as they introduce themselves as safety officers. Hyun-sung doesn't buy it for a second, his eyes narrowing as he realizes they aren't wearing any official IDs. Trust is a luxury he can't afford, and these two look far too elite to be simple guards. The blonde observer explains with a smile that they were using a high-level, hiding skill, which is why his senses failed to pick them up. Hyun-sung repeats the phrase under his breath, his heart sinking as he realizes just how outclassed he might be. He's been grinding for survival, but he just realized there are people in this world who can become invisible at will, and they've been watching his every move. What do they really want from a low-rank, solo player? Wait, the blonde girl is actually laughing. She tells him straight up that they've been watching him this whole time, and then she drops the question that makes Hyun-sung's heart stop. What's your level? As the system screen shows us his impossible stats, level 1 with a massive 270 total points, you can see the visible sweat on his face. Man, if he actually shows them that screen, he's basically handing over a death warrant or a golden ticket, and he knows it. Hyun-sung looks away with a heavy, internal sigh, thinking to himself that nothing good ever comes from being found out by people this powerful. Sensing his hesitation, the party leader steps in to smooth things over, claiming they aren't trying to force him, they're just curious. But let's be real, when an elite party happens to see a solo rookie taking down monsters like a pro, curiosity is usually just the first step towards something much more dangerous. The name, Seowu Guild, suddenly drops, and the atmosphere shifts instantly as Hyun-sung's gaze sharpens. This isn't just any group, it's a massive powerhouse sponsored by one of the biggest enterprises in Korea, and the leader offers him a direct recommendation. All he has to do is show her his status window, and he's in. It's the kind of offer most players would kill for, but for someone with a secret like Hyun-sung's, it's a total nightmare. Hyun-sung stares down at his interface, his mind racing through the penalty that keeps him trapped at level 1 regardless of how much blood he spills. He swallows hard, realizing that if he reveals his status, they'll see a freak of nature who grows stronger without ever leveling up. The tension is thick enough to cut with a sword. Does he lie, or does he risk exposing the very thing that makes him a target? Hyun-sung looks her right in the eye and delivers the ultimate shocker. He has absolutely no interest in joining a guild. The party leader's face goes completely blank for a second, her brain probably short-circuiting at the rejection. Honestly, seeing a low-rank, solo player turn down the most prestigious guild in the country with zero hesitation is a total power move, but it's definitely going to have consequences. The leader leans in, her voice skeptical as she asks if he even understands what he's turning down. Hyun-sung just gives a tired, knowing smile, confirming he knows exactly who they are, but his answer isn't changing. He's choosing the hardest, loneliest path possible, and as he walks away, you have to wonder, now that the Seowu Guild has their eyes on him, will they really just let a talent like him disappear back into the shadows? Hyunsung rubs his chin with a thoughtful look as he faces two female hunters. He's just finished a massive solo grind, but these recruiters are already breathing down his neck. He tells them flat out, he has no intention of joining a guild right now. Honestly, it's the smart move because solo play means 100% of that sweet loot stays in his own pockets. Hyunsung gives a casual, slightly awkward smile and asks them to step aside so he can leave. The lead hunter doesn't give up though, sliding a business card into his hand with a smooth motion. She tells him to call if he changes his mind, promising him special treatment based on his skills. It's a tempting offer for any normal hunter, but Hyunsung has bigger plans than being someone's employee. The woman watches him walk away and offers to escort him out of the dungeon to avoid annoying things like other scouts. Hyunsung doesn't even break his stride, throwing a blunt "no thank you" over his shoulder. Man, that was cold. You can see the pure shock on her face. She clearly isn't used to being rejected so easily. The blonde teammate stands by her side, fuming as she watches Hyunsung's back. She's convinced he's just an arrogant rookie who's going to regret turning them down later. But the crazy part is, they have no idea he's already stronger than most veteran teams. Will his pride eventually lead to a collision with these big guilds? Bright sunlight floods the screen as Hyunsung finally steps out of the dungeon gate and back into the real world. He stops for a brief moment, looking back at the building with a tired but satisfied expression. He's survived the hunt, but now he has to face the one thing scarier than monsters, the tax man. Just how much is the government going to take from his hard-earned 10 million won? A cheerful taxi driver turns around with a smile, asking where our hero needs to go. Hyunsung collapses into the back seat, looking like he's been through a literal war zone, and simply tells the man to start driving. He takes a deep breath to settle his nerves before finally giving the destination, the Blood Fox dungeon. I love how he doesn't even take a lunch break. He's literally going from one death trap straight into the next. The driver realizes Hyunsung just graduated from the beginner dungeon and offers a genuine congratulations. He's seen plenty of players take this route, but he has no idea just how different this kid really is. Hyunsung plays it cool with a polite smile, but his eyes are fixed on his status window. He's staring at his level 1 stats and wondering, can his secret marketplace strategy actually work against monsters that are 10 times stronger? If he's wrong, this taxi ride is going to be his last. The scene shifts to the bustling exterior of the new dungeon under a wide, clear sky. You can hear party leaders screaming for healers and tankers, promising double the magic stones just to find someone brave enough to join. Hyunsung weaves through the crowd, noticing the atmosphere is suspiciously similar to the rabbit dungeon. When a recruiter asks where the rest of his team is, Hyunsung just laughs it off. It's a bold move, but going solo in a place like this is usually a death sentence. A pair of pointed ears twitches as a massive, dark silhouette of a fox looms over a group of players. This isn't a game anymore. The blood fox looks terrifyingly fast and ready to kill. Hyunsung watches the encounter from a distance, his gaze sharpening as he observes the current party's struggling formation. He's waiting for the perfect moment to test his luck, but even he looks a bit tense. Will he find a way to exploit the system again, or has he finally bitten off more than he can chew? Hyunsung's lips curl into a sharp smirk as the stealth notification appears. He stands ready in his plate armor, completely invisible to the monsters stalking the area. "Will do," he whispers, his gaze hardening as he commits to the solo hunt. Seeing him this calm while surrounded by killers, that's some serious main character energy. A sword slices through the dark, instantly dropping a fox for 180 points. Hyunsung doesn't waste a second, his gloved hands tightening around his hilt with lethal intent. He explodes into a sprint, his blade trailing light as he carves through the next beast. He's moving so fast the foxes don't even have time to yelp. 2 more carcasses thud against the floor as Hyunsung barely breaks his stride. He glances back at the trail of bodies, sweat dripping down his face from the sheer intensity of the grind. Suddenly, a whole pack of blood foxes circles him, baring their teeth and blocking his path. "Shall I?" he asks himself, looking completely unfazed by the trap. How much can one guy actually take before he hits his limit? His armor flashes as he unleashes a flurry of relentless, blinding strikes. The kill count hits 299, and with a final, guttural effort, he drives his blade home to reach the big 300. His eyes are wide, strained, and filled with the raw adrenaline of the slaughter. Just then, a blue window pops up, unbelievable achievement. You have to wonder, what kind of insane reward is the system about to hand him for this massacre? Hyunsung stands in the dim cave, staring intently at a glowing blue interface. He calls out for his status window, and his eyes widen as he sees his strength stat tick up to 70+1. This confirms his theory, grinding these titles is the only way to bypass his level 1 limit. Honestly, seeing that small number move is more satisfying than any level up at this point. A blood fox leaps through the air, only to be met by a cold, silver blade. Hyunsung isn't just fighting anymore. he's harvesting, moving with a rhythm that's almost mechanical as he clears the cavern. He casually rests his heavy sword on his shoulder, looking like a man who's finally found his groove. He's becoming a true predator in this dark hole, and the monsters are starting to realize it. A massive achievement window flashes across his vision, announcing he's solo hunted 1,000 blood foxes. He's just earned the rare rank title, Blood Fox Predator, which bumps his strength bonus even higher. The crazy part, the system mentions that growth to heroic rank is actually possible. If he can keep this up, he's going to be a walking cheat code while still technically being the lowest level possible. Hyun-sung collapses against the cave wall, sweat dripping down his face as he admits he needs to return tomorrow. But as he looks at the loot, a strange blue crystal catches his eye, making him tilt his head in confusion. It's a skill book for Hardened Body, but a system notice immediately kills the hype by telling him he already knows it. It feels like a wasted drop, but with his dimensional marketplace, could he actually sell this for a fortune? Hyun-sung stares at the glowing blue interface of the dimensional marketplace, his face tight with concentration. He quickly registers the Hardened Body skill book, realizing that if the system won't let him learn it twice, he might as well get paid. I'll take this as well, he mutters, finalizing the digital listing. It's a gamble to see what other dimensional buyers will pay, but he's playing the long game now. He finally emerges from the dungeon under a vast, star-speckled night sky, walking past the silent armored guards. When he reaches the exchange counter, the clerk in the suit looks like he's seeing a ghost. So many. The man stammers, his hands trembling as he looks at the massive pile of magic stones. Honestly, seeing a solo hunter bring back a haul this big is practically unheard of. Hyun-sung looks over his shoulder with a sharp, knowing gaze as he prepares to leave. The clerk mentions that a rare rank skill book has literally never appeared from this specific dungeon before. Hyun-sung doesn't say a word, just lets a confident smirk spread across his face. He's officially become the biggest anomaly in the building, and he's loving every second of it. A tray of jagged, glowing blue magic stones sits on the counter being tallied up by the staff. The clerk announces the total comes to 840,000 won, and Hyun-sung can't help but think, nice, as he looks at the payout. That's nearly $1,000 for one trip, and that's before the skill books even sell. This is the moment his entire life changes, right? His footsteps echo through the quiet lobby as he heads for the exit, armor clinking with every step. He calculates the math in his head. He should be able to pull in at least 1,000,000 won every single day. He looks forward with a fierce, determined smile, finally feeling like he's the one in control. But wealth like this attracts a lot of attention. Can he protect his family once the world finds out how much he's making? Hyun-sung is seen chewing on some quick gimbap while staring into space. He's realizing the back and forth trip to his tiny Gazawan is killing his efficiency, so he decides it's time to find a local motel. Honestly, it's the right call. Poverty teaches you early on that time is literally money. His eyes turn cold and focused as he heads back into the shadows. He's not just fighting anymore, he's a blur of steel, tearing through blood foxes with a single, clinical strike. The speed of his growth is becoming terrifying. He's turned this dangerous dungeon into his own personal farm. A bright system window flares up against the dark stone, illuminating the cave. He's just slaughtered his 1,000th fox, officially unlocking the title, Blood Fox Massacrer. He breathes out a heavy sigh, whispering, finally, to the empty air. This is the moment his desperate grind finally pays off. Hyun-sung's face goes pale as he reads the hidden detail. He's the first person ever to reach a heroic tier achievement. He grips his head, almost laughing at the sheer absurdity of his situation. He knows he cheesed the system to get here, but in a world this cruel, survival doesn't care about playing fair. He quickly swipes his hand to open the full status window, his heart hammering against his ribs. His stats haven't just grown, they've exploded by a flat 100 points across the board. That is an insane power spike for someone who is still technically level 1. He stares at the title's final property. Growth to legendary rank is possible. His eyes widen as he realizes he's holding a world-class power while everyone else is still playing by the rules. But with legendary power comes legendary danger. How much more blood will he have to spill to reach that peak? Hyun-sung's eye widens in a sharp close-up. He realizes that if he keeps pushing, he might actually become the first person to ever reach a legendary rank achievement. Seriously, just thinking about being the first in the world is enough to give anyone chills. He turns his back to the darkness, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. He mutters to himself that he's done for the day because he physically can't do any more than this. Even a monster like him has a limit, and he's clearly pushed past it hours ago. The scene shifts briefly to the quiet, torchlit outskirts of the dungeon branch. While the rest of the hunters are probably resting or grabbing a drink, Hyun-sung is still out here in the dirt. It's that grind-or-die mindset that's finally starting to separate him from the pack. A torch flickers against the cave wall as a massive blue notification suddenly pings. The system officially declares him the first legendary rank achievement attainer, and he slumps against the wall, dropping his sword. He's completely spent, but he's wearing this look of pure disbelief, he actually made the impossible happen. His status window glows with a massive reward. Every single one of his stats has just increased by 40 points. Hyun-sung lets out a tired, manic laugh as he sits on the cold floor, staring at his new power. This isn't just a level up anymore, he's essentially become a human cheat code. But with stats this high at level 1, how long can he stay under the radar before the big guilds come knocking? A blue system window displays the legendary rank, Blood Fox Massacre, title. Hyun-sung gains 8 more points in strength, but the notification warns him that no more growth is possible with this specific title. He mutters that it's a shame, clearly disappointed that he's already hit the ceiling of such a powerful buff. He starts walking through the dark, torchlit dungeon corridor, his mind already spinning with his next plan. Honestly, his hunger for power is getting a bit scary. He knows there are still plenty of low-level hunting grounds he can cheese to stack even more hidden stats. A wooden sign marks the entrance to the Horned Rabbit dungeon, recommended for levels 1 through 5. Hyun-sung takes a sharp, focused breath before diving back into the grind. He moves like a blur, his sword cutting through the rabbits so easily it's barely even a workout. He stands over the fallen monsters, realizing that at this point, his bare hands are more than enough to handle these mobs. It's a total one-sided slaughter. Watching him work, you realize just how far he's drifted from a normal level 1 player. Hyun-sung looks at a small leather pouch on his belt, deciding it's finally time to head back. The scene shifts to the neon Gag Motel sign glowing against the dark night sky as he checks his phone. Back in a locker room, a shirtless and incredibly fit Hyun-sung scrolls through his messages, planning his trip to the auction house. He's expecting a massive sum of money today from all his hard-earned loot. After all the blood and sweat, he's finally about to see the literal payoff. The massive glass exterior of the auction house building looms over the city streets. Hyun-sung, now dressed in a casual gray hoodie, stands at the reception desk to finalize his transaction. The clerk hands him a document for confirmation, but as he looks at the numbers, his expression shifts to pure confusion. He mutters, staring at the paper. Why is he reacting like that? Did the auction house take a massive cut, or are the numbers so high they don't even look real? Hyun-sung stares at a receipt with shaking hands. The tax on his earnings is a staggering 10 million won, leaving him looking absolutely drained. Seriously, the system takes a massive cut just for the privilege of being strong. He steps out into the city air, realizing that if he wants to stay ahead of these fees, he has to hunt even harder. A blue system window displays a list of common items being sold in the marketplace. Hyun-sung calculates his potential profits, realizing reaching 1 billion won a month isn't just a dream anymore, it's actually possible. If this momentum keeps up, he can finally afford that legendary elixir for his family. But how much longer can he keep this secret solo streak going before the world notices? Hyun-sung walks down the street, clutching his bag and looking at his worn-out hoodie. He realizes he hasn't bought a single new piece of clothing since his father collapsed and their life fell apart. A subtle, confident smile finally breaks across his face as he takes a firm step forward. It's like the heavy shadow of being a loser is finally starting to lift. The scene shifts to a dimly lit factory as the clock hits 7 p.m. Workers are heading home, including a tired-looking woman in a white cardigan, Hyun-sung's mother. She's walking alone down a dark, quiet alleyway when a familiar voice suddenly cuts through the silence. "Mom." Hyun-sung is standing right there waiting for her. Man, seeing them reunite after everything he's been through, it really hits home. But what is she going to say when she sees her son looking so different? Hyun-sung raises his hand and waves with the biggest, most genuine smile we've seen since this journey started. His mother calls out to him, her voice filled with a mix of relief and confusion as they finally meet in the middle of the street. She looks him over and realizes he's actually grown taller since the last time they were together, which is crazy considering what he's been through. Under the glow of the evening sky, she immediately asks him if he's eaten dinner yet, falling right back into that classic, protective mom mode. It's such a grounded, quiet moment after all that bloody dungeon chaos, and you can tell Hyun-sung is just soaking in the normalcy. The mother's face softens as she explains she can't actually head home to eat with him just yet. She's still got a long shift waiting for her at the restaurant and tells Hyun-sung to go home and order some jajangmyeon for himself so he doesn't stay hungry. Hyun-sung watches her, his heart clearly sinking as he sees the sheer fatigue etched into her features. She's still out here grinding for pennies, totally unaware that her son is literally carrying a life-changing fortune in his pocket right now. It's honestly painful to see her worry about a cheap meal when he knows he has the power to end their struggles forever. Hyun-sung's expression turns sharp and focused, his playful mood vanishing as he looks her right in the eye. He tells her he didn't just come here to say hi, he has something massive he needs to tell her before she goes to work. His mother freezes, her confusion turning into a heavy, expectant silence as she senses the weight in his voice. Then, he drops the bombshell, "I've awakened." Her face goes totally pale, and the look of pure shock in her eyes is absolutely gut-wrenching. Everything they knew about their quiet, struggling life just evaporated in a single second. Hyun-sung proudly holds up an official player ID card under the twilight sky. He finally did it. He's registered and tells his sister she can finally quit her grueling restaurant job. It's the big win we've been waiting for, but the heavy title, Worry, flashes on screen, and you just know this relief is going to be short-lived. His sister stares back with a face full of dread rather than joy. She isn't thinking about the money, she's thinking about the graveyard of people who tried to be heroes. She flat out refuses to quit, reminding him that being a rookie player usually costs more than it actually pays. Honestly, her fear is totally justified given how many people die in those gates. Hyun-sung scratches his head awkwardly before handing over a slip of paper that changes everything. Her eyes nearly pop out of her head when she sees the balance, 1 billion won. He sold a rare skill book, and just like that, the crushing weight of their father's hospital bills and debt has vanished. But even with 1 billion won in the bank, can money really keep him safe from the red-eyed monster waiting in the dark? A woman's face crumbles as she breaks down into a heart-wrenching sob. Hyun-sung tells his family it's finally time to live comfortably, but the weight of their past struggle is still clearly heavy. He insists that he wouldn't even be healthy today if it weren't for them, so he needs his sister and mother to rest while he takes over the responsibility for their father's care. Seeing him step up as the backbone of the house is honestly such a powerful moment. His mother whispers a tearful, "Thank you," and you can feel the crushing pressure of debt finally evaporating. But even with the bills paid, the clock is still ticking on his father's life. The neon sign of a restaurant called Terrific Tripes flickers under the night sky. Instead of resting, Hyun-sung is back at his old workplace, scrubbing down counters and finishing the heavy lifting for the night. The older staff members are beaming, thanking him for working so hard that they actually get to go home early for once. He just gives a humble smile and waves a casual goodbye, acting like he didn't just become a billionaire overnight. It's a brief, wholesome breather, but we know the peace is a lie. He's secured the funds, but the real hunt for his father's cure is about to get bloody, and that red-eyed nightmare is waiting for him in the dark. Night falls over the city as Hyun-sung finally makes it back to their small apartment. He walks in with a calm, "I'm home," but his sister looks like she's seen a ghost, dropping everything to check on him. She's instantly panicked, wondering why he's back so early and if something went wrong. It's honestly heartbreaking how, coming home early, is a cause for alarm in this house. The family gathers on the floor, and Hyun-sung realizes it's time to change their lives. He looks his sister in the eye and finally says the words, "I awakened." Her face goes completely blank from the shock, but he doubles down, telling her he hit the jackpot. You can feel the weight lifting off his shoulders in this moment, but the real test is whether they'll actually believe him. He slides a bankbook across the rug, watching as his sister's hands start to shake. She stares at the pages, stuttering through the digits until she realizes she's looking at 1 billion won. She's literally sweating, gasping out, "Is this for real?" as the reality of their new life sets in. They're rich, but in this world, having that much money without the strength to keep it is a death sentence. Hyun-sung gives a soft, confident smile, telling his sister she doesn't have to struggle anymore because he's taking over. His sister's face crumples as heavy tears splash directly onto the bankbook. She starts sobbing uncontrollably, rubbing her eyes while the reality of their survival finally sinks in. Hyun-sung just pulls her into a hug, letting her release years of pent-up fear and exhaustion. Man, you can really feel how much she's been carrying on her shoulders. Night falls over their quiet neighborhood, finally bringing a moment of peace to the household. The siblings sleep side by side on thin floor mats, looking more relaxed than they have in years. But as dawn approaches, Hyun-sung is already wide awake and preparing to leave. The grind never stops when you have a family to protect. He leaves the bankbook on the table while his sister prepares for her day in her work apron. She asks if he's really okay going back out when dungeons are spawning everywhere, her voice thick with worry. Hyun-sung just laces up his sneakers and flashes a grin, promising to be back by the time she finishes work. He's got the money now, but he's heading straight back into the danger zone for his father's sake. Can he really secure the cure before time runs out? Hyun-sung's sister watches him head out for the night in nothing but a casual hoodie. He flashes a quick smile, telling her he can just borrow combat gear once he gets to the site. It's a brave face, but can he really survive a dungeon with zero protection? He waves a casual goodbye as night falls over the city. Honestly, seeing him walk into the darkness with nothing but a grin is kind of terrifying. The sister stands alone under the streetlights later that night, clutching her phone as Hyun-sung's calls go straight to voicemail. She's spiraling, terrified that he's already become another dungeon casualty. But then, Hyun-sung finally shows up, breathless and apologizing for the heavy traffic. She scolds him for the scare, but you can see the pure relief in her eyes. It makes you wonder, how many more close calls can this family actually handle? A hospital door sign reads Choi Hyunju, marking the room where their world stopped turning. Inside, their father lies motionless, caught in a sleep he might never wake from. Hyun-sung stands by the bed, his expression hardening as he stares at his frail father. In his eyes, the grief is finally turning into a cold, sharp resolve. He's done being the victim. Now, he's the provider, no matter the cost. Hyun-sung and his sister sit by their father's bedside as he makes a silent, heavy vow. He promises to find a cure no matter what, finally turning his grief into fuel. 10 days later, the scene shifts. We're heading into a dungeon where not a single soul is in sight. Can he really pull this off alone? A golden notification rings out, announcing Hyun-sung has earned the legendary title of Horned Rabbit Slayer. He's been grinding hard, slaughtering 10,000 of them until he's practically a master. He checks his watch with a calm smirk, realizing he still has 6 hours of hunting left in the tank. The kid is becoming an absolute machine. A quick thank you echoes as Hyun-sung walks toward a new, eerie gate. He looks around, realizing the entire area is a ghost town with 0 players in sight. He stops in front of a weathered sign for the Vampire Bat Dungeon, a place recommended for levels 10 to 15. This feels like a massive jump in difficulty, doesn't it? Swarms of red-eyed bats flicker in the darkness, waiting for a drop of blood. Most beginners wouldn't dream of coming here without a high-level guild for backup. But Hyun-sung just touches his chin and grins. He knows exactly what he's doing, and honestly, that look on his face is terrifying. A cold, blue light shimmers as Hyun-sung steps into the pitch-black corridor. He whispers, stealth, and his presence completely vanishes into the shadows. This is where most players would be shaking, but he's just getting started. 2 guards sit around a table, laughing and completely oblivious to the shadow passing them by. They're talking about how real things are getting, but they have no clue a hunter is standing right behind them. Seriously, how are they still alive with that lack of awareness? Quiet footsteps echo as Hyun-sung moves into the heart of the nest, where hundreds of red eyes stare back from the ceiling. He looks up at the swarming bats and asks himself if it's time for a mass hunt. Talk about a death wish, is he really planning to pull the entire room? Hyun-sung activates his shield, blue hexagonal patterns locking into place as he boldly releases his stealth. He's standing right in the open now, a smirk on his face as he prepares for the swarm to descend. The dinner bell just rang, and things are about to get incredibly messy. Jagged red eyes snap open in the pitch black. The bait works instantly as a swarm of monsters screeches and lunges toward his blue aura. Hyun-sung watches them, comparing the onslaught to a black wave ready to swallow him. Honestly, standing your ground against that is just insane. The dark swarm converges into a massive, suffocating cloud right above his head. Hyun-sung doesn't flinch, raising a gloved hand as a bright fireball erupts to meet the charge. The explosion scatters the monsters, leaving him to exhale a heavy, shaky breath. He's alive, but that was a total heart-stopper. Beads of sweat roll down his face as the mental strain finally hits. He admits that juggling 2 active skills simultaneously is a brutal tax on his concentration. Still, he grips his sword while the fire dances in his other palm. It's a high-wire act, but it's his only way to win. A confident smirk finally breaks through his exhaustion. He calls the dual-wielding a neat trick for clearing out the small fry in this dungeon. His eyes narrow, glowing with a sharp, predatory focus. But the real question is, how much longer can his mana actually hold out? A massive fireball roars to life, casting a harsh orange glow over the damp cave walls. Hyun-sung's face is tight with strain, sweat dripping as he gasps that he's reached his absolute limit. He puts every ounce of remaining strength into one last thrust, screaming for the fire to go as it streaks into the dark. The resulting blast is absolute chaos, turning the tunnel into a literal furnace. That's definitely one way to clear a room. Shattered stone and thick dust fill the air as the shockwave kicks back toward him. Hyun-sung drops to the ground, bracing himself for the impact of the falling ceiling. Suddenly, a translucent blue hexagonal barrier flickers into life, perfectly encasing him. He looks at the mana shield in genuine disbelief, barely breathing out a wow at his own survival. It's like his instincts are evolving faster than his brain can keep up. A sharp, jagged screech cuts through the settling dust, sounding like a total nightmare. Hyun-sung's expression shifts from awe to a nervous, sheepish grin as he realizes that explosion might have been a bit too loud. From the shadows, the dark silhouettes of massive, bat-like wings begin to unfold and descend. He just rang the dinner bell for the entire dungeon, and the question is, how do you fight a swarm when your mana tank is empty? Hyun-sung grits his teeth, looking up as massive, leathery shadows swarm the cavern ceiling. He prepares one final, desperate strike, knowing his mana is screaming at him to stop. Suddenly, a vampire bat screeches down with glowing red eyes, but it's met with a deafening kwang blast that shakes the very foundations of the dungeon. As the smoke clears, Hyun-sung stands among the wreckage, breathing hard but still standing. Honestly, I didn't think he had enough juice left in the tank for a hit that big. A blue system window flickers to life, announcing a rare rank achievement for soloing 300 high-level bats. He's officially earned the title Vampire Bat Predator, putting him one step closer to that legendary rank goal he's chasing. He immediately starts tallying up the potential loot and magic stones, a small smirk playing on his lips. You can see the hope in his eyes, this haul might actually be enough to finally pay for his father's treatment. But then, the atmosphere shifts as a single, piercing red eye stares out from the darkest corner of the room. A jagged, blood-red blade begins to manifest from a swirling mist with an ominous hiss. Hyunsung freezes, his voice trembling as he asks what just happened, while the pressure in the room becomes suffocating. His face goes deathly pale, realizing he isn't a predator anymore.